It is the 16th century. From all over Europe, great ships sail west to conquer the New World, the Americas. The men eager to seek their fortune, to find new adventures in new lands. They long to cross uncharted seas and discover unknown countries, to find secret gold on a mountain trail high in the Andes. They dream of following the path of the setting sun that leads to El Dorado and the mysterious cities of gold.
Season 1, Episode 4, Lost Gold, Unleash the Beast. Mined Earth Criteria Number 8, Legends of Lost Gold. It seems like wherever there are stories, myths, or legends of lost gold, we end up finding evidence of many, if not all, the 7 other mined Earth criteria, and inevitably, evidence of ancient mining as well. We now have a working version of mined Earth criteria. Follow these clues, and you will find evidence of ancient mining. Mined Earth criteria: megalithic sites, creator god mythology, Sumerian tablets, geological evidence, nearby present-day gold mines, earthquakes and fault lines, news reports and scientific papers, and now stories of lost gold. By using this checklist, a picture of what could have possibly happened to our planet begins to present itself. Somewhere in our past, a very sizable part of our planet has been mined by humans for the Anunnaki, and the gold has been taken away. Stories of lost gold from the region around Lake Titicaca and Cusco. The lost city of Paititi. Throughout history, there are many stories of lost gold, lost treasure of gold, and lost cities of gold. From Israel and King Solomon's mines, to the Sahara Desert in Timbuktu. From ancient Greece and King Midas to Kruger's millions, hidden gold from the Boer War in South Africa. Countless books have been written, movies have been produced, and even many video games created that are all based on these legends. The idea of lost gold has been imprinted in the general psyche of humanity. If we could find it, we'd be rich beyond our wildest dreams. But, inevitably, these seem to be only stories, and not much, if any, of this missing gold has actually ever been found. High up in the Andean mountains of South America, the stories of missing gold are no different. Among some of the best come from the regions around Lake Titicaca and Cusco. One legend begins in the 16th century, when the great Inca Empire in western South America was giving way to European invaders. Atahualpa was an Incan king who, after warring with his brother Huáscar for control of the empire, was captured at his palace in Cajamarca in modern-day Peru by Spanish commander Francisco Pizarro. Widely regarded as the largest ransom ever paid, Emperor Atahualpa of the Inca offered a roomful of gold and 2 roomfuls of silver to Francisco Pizarro, a Spanish conquistador, after his capture. According to documented calculations, Emperor Atahualpa's ransom room was 22 by 8 by 17 feet. If 1 cubic foot contained 17.5 troy ounces of precious metals, the total collection of gold, after being melted down into standard ingots and before division among the Spaniards, based on 2014 global gold prices, was approximately worth $75 billion US. Some of the most beautiful articles were saved for the Spanish Emperor's royal fifth, the 20% that would always go to the King of Spain, which included statues, vases, imitations of plants and animals, and a fountain. Pizarro took the ransom, but still brought Atahualpa to account on various erroneous charges, and publicly executed him before the last and largest part of the ransom had been delivered. Upon hearing of the murder, Ruminawi, Atahualpa's general and half-brother, is said to have taken the remaining gold to one of the last Inca strongholds, Vicabamba. By the time the Spanish arrived at Vicabamba, the city had been evacuated and the gold moved deeper into the rainforest, possibly to the lost Inca city of Paititi. After being denied the last of the ransom, the Spaniards continued south and entered Cusco. Here they plundered gold and silver, including 700 gold plates, each weighing 4.5 pounds, from the sacred rooms in the Coricancha, the temple of the sun god Inti. The Coricancha is an excellent example of temples being built on previous ruins. Here we can see the Spanish, with smaller stones, have built on a pre-Inca larger foundation of polygonal masonry, which in turn has been built on ancient megalithic polygonal masonry. 3 different styles, 3 different time periods, possibly 3 different civilizations. It is almost impossible to relate how much gold Spain plundered from Peru in just over 40 years, starting in 1531. Estimates are over 100 million gold items and over 200 million silver items. One of the Spanish ships that sunk in 1804 was found by the Odyssey Marine Exploration, and inside was $500 million worth of gold. Yes, that's $500 million just from one ship. And over 300 ships crossed the oceans to Spain each year. These were known as the Spanish Treasure Fleet. Despite this enormous fortune of gold that had been found, taken, and melted into ingots, there are stories that say the Spanish had only found a small portion of what existed. It is said the Inca had moved most of it after hearing of the arrival of the conquistadors. Where could it be? Does it really exist? Could the lost city of Paititi be the final refuge for the Inca? Could vast quantities of gold still be there? Over the years, many explorers, treasure hunters, and archaeologists have searched for the legendary city. Some feel they have gotten close, while others have claimed they have found it. But finding this mysterious place has been far from easy. The story and legend of lost gold and the possible existence of a secret Inca city in the remote forests of Peru is exciting and fascinating. The story, though, raises many other questions. Where and how did the Inca get their gold? How did they become so proficient in gold metallurgy? And why would they have bothered with gold in the first place? And ultimately, at the heart of the story, there seems to be gold that has gone missing. This story is not unique, and it seems there is an awful lot of them, both in the past and in the present, that talk of missing or lost gold. Gold that cannot be accounted for. Could the Sumerian tablets be true? Could there have been, or is there still, an extraterrestrial race called the Anunnaki that have been mining the planet for gold and taking it to use to repair their own atmosphere? As we explore the answers to these questions, it will lead us into some very uncomfortable places. They do, however, almost always point to evidence. Evidence that suggests that our planet, or at least a sizable portion of it, has, at some time in the ancient past, been mined. We have now been introduced to all 8 mined earth criteria. Let's unleash this 8-headed beast and see what happens. We want to take the journey from Lake Titicaca to the city of Cusco. Let's use the framework of the criteria to explore the Chulpa to Sustani complex. This can be our first Mind Earth criteria stop as we head up towards Cusco. Here at this site we're going to see polygonal masonry, this time in the form of large circular structures. We're going to see sediment piles, some flattened in the middle of the lake, some piled up around the side of the lake. We're also going to see evidence of terracing. These circular stone structures will become a reoccurring theme as we head up the valleys towards Cusco from Lake Titicaca. And we'll see and explore one of the amazing features found not only at this site, but sites all the way up towards Cusco and really throughout the world, which are these stone walls that create step-like terraces up the side of hills, or in some cases, like this, a radiating web of terraces and channels going up the side of these hills. An interesting approach to the question as to whether this area has at one time in the past been mined is to ask the question, what would you expect to see if it were? Let's take a quick look at a present-day active gold mine nearby to answer that question. This is the Tintea gold mine. It is a mature gold mine that has been in operation since 1985. If we look into the larger economic story behind the operation of the mines in this area, including Tintea, we realize very quickly that this is big business. The history of ownership of the Tintea mine is comprised of a who's who list of some of the largest multinational companies in the world. It was acquired by BHP Billington in 1996, and then by Xstrata in 2006, and was further acquired by Glencore in 2013, after a violent repression by police of local residents which resulted in the death of 2 civilians. The deaths were the result of a local protest against Xstrata in the May of 2012, during a state of emergency in which civil liberties guaranteed by the Constitution were removed. An Australian ABC public radio report said, "Glencore's history reads like a spy novel. One infamous incident includes the pardon of the charges of tax evasion against former CEO and founder Mark Rich. In 2001, the charges against Mark Rich were dismissed as he was given full pardon by then-President Bill Clinton at midnight on his last day in office. It was the very last thing Bill Clinton did as president. You can't make this stuff up." In 2015, Glencore was listed by Forbes magazine as the 10th largest company in the world. Mark Rich died in 2013, but the company that he founded and continued to run because of his presidential pardon now owns and operates the gold mine in Tintea, high up in the Andes Mountains of Peru, right on the same path that the sun god Viracocha was said to have taken during the creation of the Inca. Coincidence? It always seems to come back to the gold. Something is going on. What is clear is that the mining of gold today continues to be big business with a capital B. Let's get back to what we came here to do. Let's look at the Tintea mine operation and get an idea of what to look for in potential ancient gold mining sites. After a preliminary examination of the Tintea mine, 2 things jump out at us. 1. There is what seems to be a big bright blue lake. 2. The bright blue lake is in the center of a great big hole in the ground. The big hole in the ground is called an open pit mine. It was not always here. It is the result of the intensive blasting used to break apart the earth to get at the ore, the rock that contains the gold. It is cheaper to clear away the area above the known gold deposit and collect the ore by systematic blasting than it is to obtain it with a traditional tunnel scenario. This blasting uses mostly the explosives which is known as ANFO, or ANFO short, for ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. The method of blasting starts at the top and each layer is a little smaller. This leaves the easily identifiable characteristic of terraces that can be used as roads to get the ore from deeper levels out of the pit. It also adds stability to the side walls of the pit so it does not collapse into itself. Once you have seen one open pit mine, they are quite easy to identify. The lake, it turns out, has not always been here either. It is a product of the mine. Looking through some of the historical Google images, we can see the lake was at first dry, and then used as a series of separate tailing ponds before becoming what it looks like today. The bright blue color of the lake, as well as the blue and green colors of all the other tailing ponds in the mine, are the products of gold leaching with cyanide. There are many methods of extracting gold from the ground. There are a few used at this gold mine. One of the multiple methods that are used at this gold mine is called heap leaching. How this works is an aqueous solution of sodium cyanide is sprinkled or poured over blasted and crushed up piles of ore. What happens is the gold atoms attach themselves to the sodium cyanide as it seeps past. This liquid gold cyanide then settles at the bottom of the pile or heaped ore into what is called tailing ponds or tailing pools. The liquid containing the gold will later be collected to get the gold out of it using further electrochemical processes. This method of heap leaching is used to process what is called low-grade ore. Low-grade ore typically contains only small amounts of gold, usually in the order of 1 to 4 grams per ton. That's 1 to 4 grams out of 1 million grams. The piles of blasted ore come from the big hole in the ground. These are smaller piles of heap leached ore at Tintea mines. As we move over towards a larger pile of heap leached ore as it goes into its different tailing pools until we get to sort of the main heap leached pile here. As it runs all the way down, this whole thing is a big pile of ore, and it's being leached into these pools here. That's heap leaching, and that's what it looks like from Google Earth. Another obvious characteristic of an open pit mine is that we will find either in or around the hole large piles of aggregate or piles of processed ore. That is, piles of the rock that were cleared off to get at the gold, and the piles of ore that have already had the gold taken out of them. The first is called waste piles, the second slag or tailing piles respectively. Remember, only a few grams per ton of any given ore sample is gold. In the case of the lower grade ores, that means the other 9,995 grams of ore that are not gold are piled up and left behind. A structurally sound configuration for these tailing piles is to create flattened stepped layers on top of one another. This forms a series of what looks like terraces from the ground up, and often has the look of a stepped pyramid with the characteristically flat top upon completion. This is a good method for piling large amount of fine or loose aggregate and is used for tailing piles all over the world. In fact, it is often difficult to differentiate between a tailing pile and heap leaching because both take advantage of this method of piling up loose aggregate in this pancake-like fashion. But both have the characteristics of terraces and usually a flat top, as seen in mines like this all over the planet. So we've seen the chemical composition and coloration of tailing pools and tailing ponds. We've seen the terracing and the piled aggregate of heap leaches and tailing piles and waste material. And so hopefully the ability to match these features to known gold mines will translate into the ability to identify these features in ancient sites as further evidence to support the premise that our planet has, at some time in the past, been mined. Gold is a heavy earth element with atomic number 79, which means gold is an atom which cannot be broken down further by chemical means. It is now believed that gold has been seeded in our galaxy by the collision of two neutron stars. Through the formation of our galaxy, solar system, and planet, the gold now resides deep within the Earth. Lithostatic pressure will force some of this fluid containing gold up through cracks formed by earthquakes, which will then solidify into quartz veins containing gold, and this gold, if near the surface, can be mined. The last thing we'll look at before leaving Tintea mines are the presence of circular tanks, usually in pairs or sometimes in multiple circle configurations. These are either flotation tanks or more likely leaching tanks. They are used as the primary method for gold extraction. For optimal success using gold leaching tanks, the gold ore is first mechanically ground down to a desired particle size. In general, a particle size of about 75 microns works well. That's pretty small, 0.075 millimeters, less than a tenth of a millimeter. Then, depending on the ore, it is sometimes further concentrated by froth flotation or by centrifugal or gravity concentration. And once a favorable gold concentration is obtained in the range of 8 to 10 grams per million, it's considered high-grade ore. Water is added to produce a slurry or pulp, kind of like a watery mud, and this slurry is put into these large cylindrical tanks. Wait a minute. Large circular structures observed at mine sites? Large cylindrical tanks? Have we seen these anywhere? Can you see where we're going with this? A solution of sodium cyanide is then added to the tank. The chemical reaction for the dissolution of gold follows the Elsner equation. 4Au plus 8NaCN, that's a sodium cyanide, plus O2 gas plus 2H2O liquid will give us 4NaUCN2 aqueous plus 4NaOH. So we see the gold dissolving and becoming part of a sodium cyanide ion, which will then be taken off and processed out later. Critical to this process, and extremely important to recognize, is the inclusion and necessity of cyanide. The use of this chemical is extremely controversial, as it can be lethal, creating environmentally devastating and dangerous scenarios if inappropriately used. There is evidence in the archaeological record of ancient Inca metallurgical knowledge. Now, new geological studies of the Andean mountain ice cores have confirmed copper smelting was occurring 2,700 years ago in this area. Circumstantial evidence continues to point towards the conclusion that this area has been mined in the ancient past. However, questions still need answering. Who, why, and how? Understanding how gold is mined and processed today will give insight and hopefully lead to answers to these questions.